There's two questions there. Which one do you want answering, and which one do you want the punch for?
Listen, I've forgiven him.
We were part of the breed of musicians who basically not knowing how to do things didn't prevent us from having mad ideas. You know, had we known what we were supposed to do, we would have gone, oh, you can't do that. Whereas our entire early lives was just, everything was an adventure, an experiment, because we didn't know what we were doing.
I mean, we thought we were working in isolation because we were listening to a lot of German music. We discovered Kraftwerk and Neu and La Düsseldorf and all these bands. But we thought we were the only people in Britain who had discovered them. We didn't realise that, the Human League were actually, doing the same thing. And there was like pockets all over Britain that were kind of doing electronic music at the same time. But for us, it was just like a whole new adventure.
The interesting thing, of course, is that because when we first started, we needed the technology, one, because we were interested in doing something new, but two, quite frankly, even our best friends thought what we were doing was rubbish. So it was two of us on a tape recorder because nobody else wanted to play with us initially. So Winston really was the essential extra pair of hands. Obviously, as things developed then, we became a four-piece, and that was the four-piece that then lasted throughout most of the 80s. But it's not just Winston, though. As our first synthesizer that we bought from my mother's catalogue, unfortunately, some of the things that Paul used to build, we don't know where they're gone. They're probably still in your mother's attic in Mel's.
They probably are still in there, yeah. I should go knock on the door and climb up in the attic and see if they're still there. Because, I went to Riversdale College here and I learned electronics. And so early on, I used to, because we didn't have any money, I used to kind of get circuit diagrams and build things that made noise. We didn't actually own a synth to begin with. We were borrowing. We knew one guy who had a synth. Well, was actually two guys, wasn't there?
Two guys.
That had synths, and we used to kind of go begging, knocking on the door, please can we borrow your synth just for the day.
I do remember one incident at Eric's club, which is probably why we ended up having to buy our own synth, because we had a song called Dancing, and we set up, and then just after we'd sound checked, Paul went, hang on a minute, we're playing Dancing, aren't we? I don't know how to make that noise on this synth. So we went, so we got Winston, took him into the dressing room, put the headphones on, spooled to where Dancing was, cut the tape, spooled it on the floor and left it, just threw Dancing on the floor, edited the tape, right, that one's been dropped, so we put Winston back on stage.
He didn't have many songs, so he must have only played for like 15 minutes. Your possibilities are endless now, it's the sort of tyranny of choice, particularly with all the synths available on computers. I mean, you can think of a sound and you can find it. What was great about those days was you were just limited by what you had, so you could only, you had one set of drum sounds, a bass, one keyboard that made an organ that made just an organ sound, and a synth that was limited, so you weren't lost in choices of the technology. So you concentrated on the quality of the song that you were writing.
Although it is funny because, you've just asked a question there about, sort of the limitations of the instrumentation. At the time, of course, we were being criticised for using these new machines that weren't real instruments.
Yeah.
And our riposte was that the Musicians' Union created a bunch of stickers that said "Keep music live," because synthesizers and tape recorders are killing real live musicianship. So we used to stick these big "Keep music live" stickers on Winston.
And they would turn during the show.
That was our riposte.
There's a lot of new bands that cite us and other bands of our era as a major influence. So that's that is really flattering. I mean, I think more and more people have started to recognise kind of what we contributed in those days.
But I think the fact of the matter is that we stopped playing and only started up again in 2006, did leave a vacuum in terms of our sort of recognition and influence for a while.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
It's changed. But you know what? We didn't start making music in order to be remembered historically by other people further down the road. I mean, quite frankly, when we were 19, we thought if we were still doing music in our mid-50s, we should probably need shooting, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
we even said that at one point.
It's been wonderful to start playing again live. I mean, we signed a crap deal that was basically just this side of legal, but that was the way it was. Friends of ours in Erasure and Depeche Mode, they signed a 50-50 deal with Mute Records. So, the number of records we'd sold, if we were on a 50-50 deal, we probably wouldn't be here. We'd be on our yachts in the Caribbean, wouldn't we?
Exactly.
So it's probably a good thing that we signed a really terrible deal with Virgin Records. In many ways, Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark was actually a conceptual art project in the guise of a band.
Pop band. Yeah.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which way you look at it, because we completely accidentally distilled our concept down into 3.5-minute, what became popular music songs that sold millions, and believe me, nobody was more surprised than we were, that songs that we wrote when we were 16 or 17 that even our mates didn't like turned out to sell millions. It was bizarre. The whole change was really bizarre.
Our interest. We've always hated the kind of cliched love songs, so we were always anti that. So we thought, well, why don't we just put everything that we're personally interested in into our songs and just write songs about those and yeah, I mean, it's. I guess we have sort of educated some people. I mean, loads of people didn't know that the plane that dropped the atom bomb on Hiroshima was called Enola Gay. I guess
nobody knew what a dazzle ship was.
Yeah.
So, I mean, basically, we have struck a blow in the pop charts for pretentious geeks.
Exactly, and we're proud of being a pretentious geeks.